everyone. Welcome to the Smashi Business Show. I'm Ward Ahmed.
And I'm Richard Fitzgerald.
And today we're at Bridge Summit, day 1 of 3. A lot of media people here, a lot of media organizations here. And for today's headlines, we're going to discuss Netflix, Warner Bros, Kalshi, and Stargate UAE. But first, Rich, you were at the Grand Prix yesterday. How was it?
It's amazing. Ward, we're here on Monday morning. There's going to be 60,000 people at Bridge Summit over the next few days. They're very, very smart as media people at marketing. And the headline they had was the largest debut media event in the world. And to be here on Monday morning after being in Abu Dhabi for the F1 in the same city, this city is really popping at the moment, right? Like there was Katy Perry on stage last night. Lando Norris won his maiden title as a 26-year-old with McLaren. And, you know, even though Max Verstappen won the race, I've been to come into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for about 13 years on and off. And, you know, whatever about the race itself, which was amazing, the event is just next level now. You know, that vision that they had to build the track around Yas Island is all coming together. Like everything from the yachts, the boats, the entertainment, the ticketing, the facilities, the fan zones, you know, the who's who is there, whether it's celebs, okay, everywhere gets that, but it's really sort of come into its own. At one moment, I walked the kind of promenade and I couldn't believe how many yachts they brought into one Yas Bay, and how many people were on the boats.
Do you have an estimate?
I don't know, but it felt like about 150, 200 boats, with full of people, trackside, as well as the thousands of people in the stands and in the paddock club and by the way, you know, I remember coming here and I've been at, you know, Jeddah Grand Prix and Bahrain Grand Prix and different things in the region. I came here on Friday morning with Aldar for the paddock club, and I couldn't believe how busy the fan zone area was. The tourists were in, they had their gear. You know, they were buying their gear all weekend. They were supporting their racers. You know, this drive to survive sort of thing that everyone loves F1 now. But they were in Abu Dhabi and they were at the Lego stand. They were at the brand activations, Etihad, Aldar. Everyone had their activations, you know, and the fan area, you know, not only on race day was popping on a practice day. So everything about the weekend was, you know, mashallah, well done to Abu Dhabi. You did an amazing job, great hosts, and we're still here.
I think, you know what, much more than that. I think Abu Dhabi is doing something really special, and I think that it's changing the culture. I think that in the past, it was a sign of wealth when you could travel to London, because, you know, you always see the Khalijis in London. But now it's a sign of wealth if you can make it to the Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. And I think that that's exactly what it is. Can you get those tickets at the paddock? Like, I think that's what I specifically saw there. But just to start with our topics for the day, first, and I think that this one is a really big one for a lot of you. So we heard of the reports that Netflix is to acquire Warner Bros. For approximately $72 billion. And, you know, at first there were a lot of bidders. There was a lot of speculation. We heard that Paramount has submitted a bid. We also heard, according to the New York Post, that the Comcast CEO actually flew to Saudi Arabia. And then at some point we heard that sovereign wealth funds were backing Paramount. But what do you think about this entire thing, Rich? Because I was talking to him and I was telling him how I think that cinema is going to be dead if this happens. But you said something that really stood out.
Yeah, I did. Well, I don't know if it stood out, but I did say something. I said two things that, you know, from the narratives, and we've covered at length the bidding process on the show in the past, and it was announced, and it'll take 2 years to go through or whatever. But two of the takeaways for me is the narratives are, you know, that Hollywood is now going into a technology, and that Netflix haven't wanted to put movies into theaters because that kills their subscription model, and they're going to kill the cinema and that sort of stuff. And, you know, my reaction to that is with, you know, get over it, deal with the times. We're in a tech world. No one wants to wait for a movie. The cinemas will still be there, but just understand the relationship and the window. It won't be 45 days. You know, it might be 15. It might even be less. But you still need big studios. Like Netflix knows this. Netflix knows you need IP and you need storytelling. But when you get a lot of the sort of old Hollywood actors and what do you call that, proprietors, like you know, people who want to protect what's in the past, I think they're missing that. You know, Netflix has changed entertainment globally. And, even Bob Iger at Netflix, who went into streaming, they all went into streaming. And now this is sort of more proof. There's a famous line, Jeff Bewkes in 2010, who was the sort of parent of what is now Warner Bros. Discovery, said, will Netflix, it's like saying the Albanian army is going to take over the world. And now it actually has. The Albanian army, Netflix, has taken over his content army, which is $82 billion worth of IP. You're talking everything from HBO to Warner Brothers, all the famous classic movies, Sopranos, Game of Thrones, all that is now going to be on Netflix, and all the future things they can do with that. But they were great custodians to it. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of licensing. There's a lot of things like that. So that was one point. And then the second point is they were also the arbiters of culture. Hollywood influenced the world in terms of messaging, in terms of emotions, in terms of good guys, bad guys, right? And this was all sort of controlled in a way. And I think that, they don't want to let go of that either. And I think that's gone. I think, how you talked about, Ward, you and I sat through the opening ceremony this morning, and wow,
That was insane.
It was insane. The movie that was produced that we saw as an opening ceremony was interlinked with this region, They mentioned Mesopotamia, they mentioned the region, they mentioned the new worlds that we're in. They mentioned the pharaohs, they mentioned the, Egyptian scripts and all the old history of storytelling. And, it's really, to say that has to be locked into Hollywood in terms of, owning the cinemas and owning the stories. That world's bygone. But yeah, there's a lot of narratives to play out on it and how it mainly affects the region. I'm happy for Netflix. I like that tech is doing well in streaming and in content. But there's a lot more to happen.
And I think with Netflix, with what we've seen is that they've really played it smart in the region. Very recently, for the first time ever, we heard that Netflix is partnering with NBC. And if you know NBC, then you know that it's one of the largest, if not largest, media conglomerates in the Middle East by Al Walid Al Ibrahimi, which is now, I believe, mostly owned by Saudi Arabia's $1 trillion public investment fund. But they partnered with them at this joint single subscription. And I believe that it's to help people get better Arabic content on Netflix. But I think that's what's really important. I think that they understand the trends. They know what's coming next, and they're going after it. And I think what's really funny is that they're kind of like making it a government issue. Like, Trump, please jump in, block this for us. But look, we're going to see what happens. I think that it's exciting in a sense that Netflix has actually reached the kind of power to have that kind of money to acquire something for that much. But to move on to our second subject of the day, and I find this one particularly interesting. It's Kalshi. Kalshi's not actually the news story that media is making it seem. So Kalshi is this prediction market, and it actually became more famous when Donald Trump was elected. And it's by these two, one Lebanese man, Tariq Mansour, and this Brazilian woman, I believe Luana Lopez. And they basically started it when they were in MIT, when they were interns together. And today, it's valued at $11 billion. It's a Lebanese man who has done this, Tariq Mansour. What do you think about all of it?
I think it's fascinating, we love covering Arab-related startups and immigrants in the US because it again goes to the content story, but just inspires great heroes from the region. And it's so fascinating. Lebanon's gone through a lot. He's obviously doing this for America, so well done to him. The announcement, the stories that you guys on Smashi Business covered around Kalshi lately were how they're powering the data for CNN and for CNBC as well. So that just shows how media companies again are integrating tech. So that again, similar thing we just talked about. And another angle on this is the sort of it's gambling in a way.
It's haram.
It's haram, and there is gambling involved in data and markets, but it shows how more scientific the bookmaker used to make the odds, and now we saw a lot with the US elections. Polymarked would have real-time data showing what are the odds. And on Monday morning, so the Netflix deal was announced on Friday. On Monday morning on Polymarked or Kalshi, Netflix were 5% chance of being the winners. So that shows how much of a shock that they got it over Paramount and the Ellisons or whatever. But that shows that everyone's looking at the so Polymark is another Kalshi, and it's basically real-time data that shows real-time trends and things like that. So yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when I saw it, I'm thinking like, how do we put Kalshi into Smashi and Lovin websites? Like, how do we have real-time odds and data in our websites and in our local cities? And how can you see what things people are doing without actually putting money down, without actually doing anything around, just looking at the data and the trends and the trends. Yeah.
And I think for me, when I saw the story of Kalshi, and I remember I asked a question of, Tariq Mansour, like, why are you not here? Come, do it in Lebanon, the way that Stefano Fallah did it with Podio.
Yeah.
He started it in Lebanon. He's based there.
Yeah. They're not giving Podio the valuations of 11 billion. They should, but
I think for me, the entire story, I remember asking my Lebanese friend, I'm like, why is Tariq in America? Like, stay in Lebanon. And she was like, girl, who's going to give him the money to start this? Because basically Tariq Mansour, the way that, the entire company was able to expand is, I believe they went to YC Combinator, by the co-founder Paul Graham, and they were able to get $150,000 in seed funding. But I think my point is that why aren't they coming here to the region? Okay, yes, maybe Lebanon might not have the funding for them, but the Middle East has the sovereign wealth funds now. I think things are changing now. The Mansours, the Tariq Mansours, they should come here because you don't just have the VCs anymore working. It's the Gulf Sovereign Wealth Fund.
You're right, but we talked about Replit and Amjad Masad, who obviously also left the region to do his startup. But we see him coming here a lot. He was pictured with Yasser Al-Rumayyan from PIF over the weekend, and Tariq Mansour will come here and he will do partnerships. And they're obviously good at partnerships. They've just done CNN and CNBC. If they level up and do Smashi business and Lovin, if they level up and get to the next level of media partnerships, they'll come here to us. And no, but I mean, I'm joking, but I mean, he will do partnerships in the region, and provided the region says it's cool to do, then he will do that. Yeah,
guys, Richard is like really famous here. Everyone's waving to him. But yeah. I think it's kind of that point of when I brought up the Gulf sovereign wealth funds, Rich. We're even seeing it. The Western companies know this, and we saw this very recently with Anthropic. When I say this number, it sounds really foreign to me, but I believe they're valued at like $180 billion. And then the recent funding round, Anthropic was able to get funding from Qatar Investment Authority, and this was QIA, and this was right after their CEO came and said, I don't really believe in taking money from dictators, but he came here and he took money. So I think for me, it's that point of, it would be nice to see the Arabs come and take the money that they deserve. And right now, another thing that Gulf sovereign wealth funds are doing is that they are powering the future of artificial intelligence. And we specifically see this in Stargate UAE. Khaldoon Al-Mubarak spoke to The National, and he basically reported that in 2026, in the third quarter, the first phase of Stargate UAE, which is meant to be like the largest data center facility outside of the US, is happening. And I think that it's with AI, it's such a concerning thing. Do you think that spending on AI is overblown, Rich?
There's definitely a lot of money award. Those big numbers and the data centers, and on the way down here, you were watching FII Asia, where Yasser Al-Rumayyan was saying that we don't know how AI is going to play out, but we do know that infrastructure and data centers are going to be part of that, and they're capital intensive. So on that level, I'm not an expert enough to say that they're wasting money on data centers. My gut is saying that they're not, that data centers are needed for the future of compute processing, and for the amount of things that AI is going to do, it needs that sort of power. So on that level, no. In terms of valuations, yeah, it does seem a bit wild, in terms of valuations, but maybe you need high valuations to get capital injections and to move needles, right? Like, go big, on some level, and this region is certainly betting on AI. I think one of the global business titles has done an AI series on the region and gone deep on each country, whether it's Qatar, Saudi. We talk about Humane a lot in Saudi, and Tariq Amina, we talk a lot about Stargate and M42, is it? Or yeah, G42, sorry, yeah. we talk a lot about these entities and how much they're investing in AI. And the UAE had the first AI minister as well, His Excellency Alama. He's actually here at Bridge Summit today. So there's a lot of that as well going on. But yeah.
And before we end the show off, I just want to add in that right now, Bitcoin MENA is happening here at ADNEC Center. They have over 3,000 speakers, many influential people there. So make sure to check that out. It's happening until tomorrow. And thank you so much for watching. This is the Smashi Business Show, a Smashi Business production under the Augustus Media Podcast Network. And I just want to add in the world's largest Bitcoin conference has returned to Abu Dhabi this month. Bitcoin MENA is drawing more than 10,000 attendees to the capital. The event comes as Bitcoin trades more than 145% higher than 2 years ago, even after a period of consolidation below recent all-time highs. The backdrop underscores the region's growing relevance in global digital asset investment and policy. It's being hosted right here, also beside the Bridge Summit at ADNEC Center, Abu Dhabi, from today until tomorrow, December 9th. Now, the conference is focusing on market structure, mining economics, regulatory frameworks, and sovereign-level Bitcoin strategy. Organizers say the agenda reflects accelerating regional investment in energy infrastructure, digital asset platforms, and institutional Bitcoin adoption. Now, look at it. This year's speakers include several of the most influential voices in the global Bitcoin ecosystem. You have Michael Saylor, Executive Chairman of MicroStrategy, CZ, the founder and former CEO of Binance, Paul Manafort, political strategist and Bitcoin advocate. And we have Paul Manafort, political strategist in the Bitcoin advocate, Anthony, the founder of Skybridge, and Ahmed bin Sulayem, the UAE's business leader, and Prince Philip of Serbia, the Bitcoin advocate, and Safadin Amus, the author of the very famous book, The Bitcoin Standard. Attendance is expected to exceed last year's record turnout, with final passes still available online and on-site. Make sure to stay on. We have Gary V coming up. Okay, so I want to start with saying, you're always saying that the next best thing to do is keep up with what the kids are doing now.
Yes.
What do you think the kids are doing now? What's the next big trend?
I think probably the biggest macro trend is live streaming. The attention that the social networks have dominated in youth culture between, TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. You're clearly seeing that Twitch and Kick and TikTok Live are taking market share. So I think, no question, live streaming is the biggest macro because that's where the attention sits. And then within that, there's fashion trends, baggy, quarter zip. There's always a trend. The teddy bear tumbler at Starbucks. There's always a micro trend, but the macro trend is that live streaming is on Kick, Twitch, and TikTok Live is starting to really gain momentum.
And what do you think the kids are doing here, specifically in the Middle East?
I think that there's a lot of energy around collectibles. So if you look at what's going on with Labubu and with Pokemon, trading cards, sneakers, watches, comic books, I think collecting is exploding in youth culture in the Middle East. And then I think the media consumptions are incredibly similar to many other parts of the world, predominantly social, YouTube, and things of that nature. But there's a huge spike on live streaming as well within the Middle East.
And I just want to talk to you more about Dubai. As an immigrant myself, and I know about your immigrant story, it's really beautiful. How do you think Dubai contributes to the spirit of immigrants and contributes to their lives?
In quite a powerful way. I think one could argue that Dubai has had the most American-like impact on immigrants over the last 30 years of what was America's incredible leadership tactics of the 1930s through, let's say, the 1980s, which is when you're attracting highly capable immigrants that are very entrepreneurial, they're having a very substantial impact on the macro economy. And I think when you look at the last 30 years, Dubai has done a remarkable job of bringing very high value immigrants to the country, and the impact's been very clear. There's very few places around the world that have had the 20-year run and has created the opportunity that it has for immigrants that can even rival Dubai. So I think it's pretty clear. I mean, it's a playbook that America really invented, and I think the UAE and specifically Dubai has done an incredible job on building their version of it.
And, something you always say is that having it figured out is like the greatest lie of society.
Correct.
Which I agree with to a certain extent.
Yes.
But I don't really think that anybody can afford that privilege to not have it figured out, especially in the kind of day and age that we live in where there's so many millionaires and billionaires who are like 21 and 20. Do you still believe in that statement? And do you still believe that everyone has that privilege to not have it figured out?
I don't think everybody has the option to even debate it. Here's what I mean by that. I don't think a person that is a 29-year-old female billionaire like we just had has it figured out. She might have figured out how to make money, but money is only one part of life. I've had the great privilege of coming from very, very, very little, living in a studio the size of this room with 9 family members, to spending the last 10, 15 years of my life rubbing elbows with some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I promise you, and I'm looking in the camera, nobody has it completely figured out, meaning some people figured out how to make money, but they're having incredible challenges with their family life. Some people have found true love, but can't figure out how to make $1. I think people looking, even the way you posed the question, I think a great danger, and this is why I make the content I make, is assuming that someone's professional success, financial success, materialistic success, that somebody driving a fancy car or carrying an expensive handbag has it figured out, is the great naivete of society. And so the reason I talk about this is life is a journey, and there are times where you have things figured out. But even when one says, let's say, has it figured out, right? They have a happy family life, financially they're successful, they're getting joy out of their work. Fortunately or unfortunately, in this situation, life continues to have curveballs, right? And so you might have things going really well, and somebody might pass in your family that you love very much, and it creates a new challenge for you. Or you over-leveraged yourself financially, and now you're caught. Life ebbs and flows. So I don't think not having it figured out is a privilege. I actually think it's the reverse of the way you asked it. I think the great privilege is understanding no one has it figured out, including yourself, and that creates a little less stress in your chest and kind of opens you up to being able to figure it out a little bit more.
And I just want to talk to you more about the Middle East.
Please.
What do you think the West still misunderstands about the entrepreneurial spirit in the Gulf and the Middle East?
Listen, I'm incredibly in love with America for many, many, many reasons. One of America's incredible shortcomings is their naivete of the world. So if we're talking Gen Pop, Europe and America, I think a lot of people are just not educated enough. Stereotypes, haven't had the luxury of traveling. From my perspective, especially in Dubai, it's just so young. It's like a startup as a country. And so I think a lot of the West, and when you think about the West, I mean, Europe versus America is quite different, but and I know both markets quite well. I would say, I think Americans would be humbled by how hungry, I think Americans pride themselves in being hungry and ambitious and win. I think they would be incredibly humbled by how consistent the ambition is in the youth culture in this part of the world, how vibrant it is, and how much opportunity there is.
And if you were forced to build a startup in Riyadh or Dubai, where would you begin? What's the one thing that you would 100% do?
As me in my current state?
Yes.
I mean, probably live shopping.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm obsessed. I think there are very few things that are just 100%.
Yeah.
Most things are made or kind of, or on its way. But I would say the enormous appetite in this region for consumables, fashion, collectible stuff, is obviously very good for shopping. Live shopping is the least friction, the most entertaining. And when the scale of live shopping is built in this region, whichever startups or company, whether it's TikTok or a or whatnot, or standalone, inherently native to the Middle East brand. Noon, whoever builds it, is going to find themselves at the top of a very big business. So if I was here and moved here and I had to start something because that was the rules, I would do it in live shopping.
No, and you know what? I completely agree with you. For Noon Minutes, the founder of Ammar, Mohammed Al-Abbar, he actually told the Financial Times that he expects Noon Minutes to IPO, Noon specifically, to IPO at $10 billion.
That makes me happy.
So I really do think that's where it is. Thank you so much
you for
for doing this interview with us.